The human eye and the brain together translate light into color. Light receptors in the eye transmit messages to the brain, which produce the familiar sensations of color. It's the surface of an object that reflects some colors and absorbs all the others. We perceive only the reflected colors. Color is defined as the aspect of things that is caused by differing qualities of light being reflected or emitted by them. To see color, you have to have light. And when light shines on an object, some colors bounce off the object and others are absorbed by it. Our eyes only see the colors that are bounced off or reflected. The first person to discover the link between color and light was scientist Sir Isaac Newton. Red is not in an apple. The surface of an apple is reflecting the wavelengths that we see as red and absorbing all the other light. An object appears white when it reflects all wavelengths and black when it absorbs all wavelengths. Red, green, and blue are the additive primary colors of the color spectrum. Combining balanced amounts of red, green, and blue lights also produces pure white light. By varying the amount of red, green, and blue light, all of the colors in the visible spectrum can be produced. Light travels into the eye to the retina, located on the back of the eye. The retina is covered with millions of light-receptive cells called rods and cones. When these cells detect light, they send signals to the brain. Most people have 3 kinds of cone cells. Every color stimulates more than one cone. Their combined response produces a unique signal for each color, and millions of different colors can be distinguished this way. These cells, working in combination with connecting nerve cells, give the brain enough information to interpret and name colors. Sunlight is comprised of the visible colors, which are often categorized into red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. This mixture is known as white light. And when white light strikes a white object, it appears white to us because it absorbs no color and it reflects all color equally. When it strikes a colored object, this colored light is reflected back. And a black object absorbs all colors equally and reflects none. That's why it looks black. Now, Newton's experiments showed that light can be combined to form different colors. For example, combining blue and yellow light produces green light, and that appears identical to the pure green found in a prism spectrum. Modern techniques, however, show that these greens to be 2 very different colors. Such color pairs are called metamers because they appear to be identical even though they have different wavelengths. About 8% of men and 1% of women have some form of color impairment. Most people with color deficiencies aren't aware that the colors that they perceive as identical appear to be different to other people, but most still perceive color. But certain colors are transmitted to the brain differently. The most common impairment is red and green dichromatism, which causes red and green to appear indistinguishable. Other impairments affect other color pairs, and people with total color blindness are actually very rare. Researchers estimate that most humans can see around 1 million different colors. This is because a healthy human eye has 3 types of cone cells, each of which register about 100 different color shades, amounting to around 1 million combinations. This will vary for people who have a color impairment or are colorblind. While millions of potential colors may seem overwhelming, color guides and tools offer different ways to organize and manage colors. And there's also so many ways to describe the colors that we see. Perceived color depends on how an object absorbs and reflects the wavelengths. Human beings can only see a small portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, but it's enough to allow us to see millions of colors. Researchers discovered that cone pigments have different levels of absorption. Cones are receptors located on the retina, and they are responsible for the vision of both color and detail. The cone receptors differ in absorption amounts due to the amount of opsin proteins in the receptor. The perception of color by the brain requires input from at least 2 different types of cones. The The brain must interpret information about both the wavelength and the intensity of the incoming stimulation. By comparing the input from each cone that's been stimulated, the brain can interpret the color of the source of that stimulation. If you combine the basics of trichromatic theory and the opponent process theory of color vision, you begin to unravel the complexities of human eyesight and maybe only scratch the surface. Do you know where you can always locate the eye? It's exactly between H and J. These are interesting things with JC.